Today I want to talk to you about prison revivals. Now, my oldest son is a prison chaplain. He works in some of the worst prisons in northern Florida and southern Alabama. Recently, he held a crusade in one of his prisons and had 36 prisoners give their lives to Christ. Yay, God. That's one type of prison revival. But I want to tell you about another type of prison revival. This prison revival was brought about by the Apostle Paul being arrested, taken to Rome, thrown in Nero's private prison for political prisoners, waiting to be tried and executed. While in prison, Paul saw a prison revival. Philippians chapter 1, verse 12, he writes, "Now I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me has actually resulted in the advancement of the gospel." So he's telling the Philippians, a little church that supported him in prayer and finances. He says, what's happened to me has brought about an advance of the gospel so that it's become known throughout the whole imperial guard, all the prisoner, those that guarded the prisoners, the guards, and to everyone else that my imprisonment is for Christ. Most of the brothers in the Lord have gained confidence from my imprisonment and dare even more to speak the message fearlessly. So what he's saying is he's in prison in Rome, and because he's in prison, he's able to reach people he couldn't reach otherwise. The church in Rome was very small, very insignificant. It needed building up. And one way God's going to build up that church is by allowing Paul to go to prison in Rome, and he's reaching the guards in the prison. The idea is one of them might be chained to him for 4, 6, 8 hours at a time, and during that time, Paul would talk to them and lead them to Christ. And then the guard would leave, and another guard would come in. Paul would talk to him, lead him to Christ. Eventually, all the guards that were assigned to Paul got saved. He's reaching the guards for Jesus. Because people hear about Paul being in prison for Christ and doing what he's doing. So a lot of other Christians are like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. If he can take the gospel in that bad situation, I can take the gospel in a bad situation. Other leaders, they're saying, well, look, if Paul can do it, we can do it. We need to be more bold. We need to not be afraid of being arrested, being thrown in prison. But it also advances the gospel in a way that you might not realize. Paul wrote the letter to the Philippians because he was in prison. We don't know if he would have had the time or the opportunity or the reason to write them if he hadn't been in prison. But because he was in prison, he had the time and opportunity to write the letter to the Philippians and some of the other letters that he wrote. Think how many millions of people have been blessed by reading that letter, all because Paul went to prison. Maybe you've been sent to, something's happened that's been bad. You got sent to the hospital. Well, I know people in the hospital, one of my friends in the hospital, because he was in the hospital, he was able to share Christ with the nurses and the doctors and other patients there. Because he was in the hospital. Bad thing, going to the hospital. Good thing, advancing the gospel. I know a young man. He grew up in church. His family prayed for him. Away from God, not walking with God, not living like a Christian at all. He ended up going to the psych ward. It just happened to be that there was a Christian girl that also ended up going through a hard time and going to the psych ward. They became friends. She shared with him that this was a thing to draw her back to God. They both got out of the psych ward. She began to invite him to a Bible study that she went to. He met her Christian friends, ended up getting saved, ended up getting baptized, ended up living with a bunch of Christian guys doing ministry. Wouldn't have happened if she hadn't gone to the psych ward. She went to a bad place. She experienced a bad thing, and God used it to produce a psych ward revival. Paul went to prison, produced a prison revival. My friend went to the hospital, produced a hospital revival. God wants to use you. And whatever you're going through, your bad situation. I know a lady, she went to get a divorce, and the lawyer said, you don't need a divorce, you need Jesus. And ended up getting saved. You may be going through a bad time, but I want you to know God can use it to use you to make a difference in the lives of others. I'm Dave Early. We do this type of simple Bible teaching 5 days a week. We want to encourage you. We want to stretch you. We want to equip you. We want you to become a prison evangelist if need be. You can follow us on Facebook or subscribe to our YouTube channel. God bless you.